Part 32. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 312. Chinyanan's mind was a little confused. She had suspected that it was Yesijan here, because she did obtain Yesijan's memory by touching the coffin. Even when Lu Chang'an once told her about the origin of the coffin, her idea did not completely disappear. She remembered that time she brought puffer fish to Lu Chang'an and Zhou Dongdong to eat. Zhou Dongdong ate a lot and left some in the bowl for herself and Lu Chang'an. Qinyanan put it back into Zhou Dongdong's bowl. Dongzhu ate them all without any hesitation. Later, Lu Chang'an took him to the carriage. He said he wanted to wake up the people inside. When he seemed to hear a female voice shouting moth or something, Qinyanan was so scared that he ran out. Qinyanan could already accept the weirdness of this coffin. What she couldn't accept was that she seemed to be sure that the voice she heard in the carriage that day was Sun. Because she heard "I am her mother today." Is this little girl hiding in the coffin really Lu Chang'an's mother? Is she still Shang Guandandan, the Empress Dowager Xiaozhao of the Western Han Dynasty? But why does the Queen Mother look like she is only 14 or 15 years old? Does your beauty last forever? But the tone, eyes, expression, and the way Lu Chang'an pushed her back into the coffin and danced with joy, it was clear that she was just a little girl. Shang Guandandan is Lu Chang'an's mother, and she is Lu Chang'an's great-granddaughter. So in the future, shouldn't she be called Shang Guandandan's ancestral grandma? The most important point is that Qinyanan has always believed that Lu Chang'an became immortal from Yechinayu more than 100 years ago. If his mother was Shang Guandandan, as he said, the Empress Dowager Xiaozhao during the Western Han Dynasty, then how could it be? Doesn't it mean that Lu Chang'an has lived for more than 2,000 years? What concept is this? In his long life, he witnessed the 2 Han and 3 kingdoms, the Western Jin and the Eastern Jin, the 5 Hus and 16 kingdoms, the Southern and Northern dynasties, the Sui and Tang dynasties, the 5 dynasties and the 10 kingdoms, the Song, Yuan, Ming, and Qing, and finally there was Yechinayu who she thought was the beginning. Come on, why are you still dazed? Lu Chang'an has already carried the coffin, although he believes that this is the most suitable place for Shang Guandandan to rest. If it is thrown into the underground Yin River, there is no need to worry about anyone coming to rob her. Qinyanan followed Lu Chang'an's footsteps. After the luminous pearl on Shang Guandandan's finger briefly shone, Qinyanan's eyes regained some of their sensitivity to light. Now that there is no luminous pearl, he has become unsuitable for such a dark place now. And quickly grabbed Lu Chang'an's finger. You're not a child, why are you pulling your fingers? Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand, grabbed Qinyanan's waist, and clamped her around his waist. Qinyanan screamed twice, but there was no dancing and struggling, but her cheeks flushed hotly in the dark. She was secretly glad that no one could see her miserable state. Since she was not a child, why was she pinched like this? Although she could understand that Lu Chang'an was carrying the coffin on one shoulder and could no longer hold her sideways, but this posture was really too embarrassing. Fortunately, it felt much faster when I went out than when I came in. When I came out of the cave, the stars were shining brightly above my head, as if I could finally bathe in the starlight after cultivating immortality, absorb the spiritual energy, and enjoy the enlightenment. In front of him, the clusters of pillar mountains were still standing in deep green in the dark night. Qinyanan let out a breath, and then discovered that Lu Chang'an had jumped down from the top of the mountain with himself and the coffin in his arms. It was not the first time that Qinyanan was led by Lu Chang'an to do such a cordless bungee jumping exercise. It still frightened her. The strong wind was rolling, and she poured it into her mouth one after another. Her hair got into her throat, making Qinyanan unable to make a sound. She had no choice but to desperately pull the waist of Lu Chang'an's pants with one hand, and grab randomly in front with the other hand. The acceleration of the free fall was very fast. Since the distance did not exceed 452 meters, Lu Chang'an was naturally unharmed. Only the solace of his feet absorbed the huge impact energy, which made all the muscles and bones of the body swell for a moment, and then he felt comfortable all over. "Can you let go?" Lu Chang'an put down the coffin and Qin Yinan. Qin Yinan pressed her chest and gasped, pulling her hair out of her mouth. Her other hand still tightly grasped the place she desperately wanted to hold when she landed. "Let go of what?" Qin Yinan squatted on the ground and glared at Lu Chang'an. "You should tell me before you jump." "Let go of my baby." Lu Chang'an slapped Qin Yinan's hand. Qin Yinan stared blankly, and then as if she had been burned by something, she fell to the ground in fright, holding her skirt with both hands, kicking her feet to keep herself far away. Her beautiful face was so beautiful at this moment, he no longer had the usual indifference and pride. He pointed to the top of his head, looked left and right a few times with no meaning, and then muttered, I didn't mean to. If you did it on purpose, I should learn Hong Shixian's lines." Qin Yinan grabbed a handful of soil and grass roots on the ground and threw them over. Lu Chang'an waved his hand to disperse the dust. He lowered his head and looked at his shoes. He forgot everything for a moment and jumped down like this. The soles of his shoes were rotten. "When I went to Qingshan town last month, I ran barefoot all night in order to save shoes. I accidentally ruined a pair of shoes tonight. After thinking about it, it was still the fault of Mrs. Karnstein and the others. I will settle the score later. You have to take special note of the time." One after another, Lu Chang'an never forgets small accounts when settling accounts. After all, for him, an account is an account, no matter how big or small it is. "Go and bring the car over, my shoes are broken," Lu Chang'an said to Qin Yinan. Qin Yinan then stood up with her back to Lu Chang'an. She felt that Lu Chang'an must have something to say to Shang Guandandan, or he felt that if he went to drive, Qin Yinan would be left here with people like Professor Crick. Qin Yinan couldn't deal with it. "I really didn't mean it." After Qin Yinan finished speaking, he took the car keys thrown by Lu Chang'an and trotted away. Lu Chang'an smiled. In fact, women always want to think of themselves as a little girl, but it just depends on when it will be exposed. Tonight, Teacher Qin was so flustered that he lost the temperament of his usual older cousin. The moon and stars are few and far between, and magpies are flying south. Lu Chang'an looked up at the stars and patted Shang Guandandan's coffin board gently. "I originally wanted to throw the coffin down from the mountain, but I was worried about damaging flowers and plants or public property, so I carried you down. It turns out the shoes are broken. These shoes are for military training and I have to buy a new pair tomorrow." "Are you very poor now?" Shang Guandandan said in a sullen voice. "Fine. That means you are very poor." I said it's okay. A man who spends a long paragraph emphasizing that his shoes are broken must be very poor. Lu Chang'an was too lazy to talk to her about this topic. Silence didn't mean acquiescence, but she wanted to take it as his acquiescence, so it didn't matter. "I didn't expect that more than 2,000 years have passed, and your pursuit and interest in women have not changed much." Shang Guandandan sighed softly, recalling the Viang Palace that year. In fact, people were particularly fond of it at that time. A tall and plump woman. I would like to remind you carefully that no one would call a plump woman a wet nurse. I have never been lucky enough to have a wet nurse, and Qin Yinan is not a wet nurse. Taking advantage of Qin Yinan's absence, Lu Chang'an seriously discussed this issue with Shang Guandandan. "When you forced me to settle, I didn't resist at first because I felt that I had never breastfed you, so I hesitated and didn't stop you from nibbling on my chest. You wanted to eat her anyway, so you are called a wet nurse. It's not necessarily inappropriate," Shang Guandandan said calmly. "Now, from when I just woke up to now, I can accept it calmly. After all, it happened more than 2,000 years ago. As long as you don't do this unethical thing anymore, I can forgive you for breaking the rules, and you don't have to worry about these little details." Lu Chang'an patted the coffin board, then patted the coffin board, then patted the coffin board again, and took a deep breath. You took the elixir that I concocted for women's health, so you asked to do those things yourself. That was your desire. Do you understand? It has nothing to do with you not breastfeeding me. Lu Chang'an said about Shang Guandandan is self-righteous and even distorts the truth for her own sake. When something happens that she cannot accept, she no longer cares about the truth. She will imagine an acceptable scenario and treat it as the truth. You can think whatever you want. I can understand that you feel guilty and are unwilling to accept the facts. Lu Chang'an stood calmly at a distance. He originally had some things to ask Shang Guandandan, but he didn't bother to talk to her. When Qin Yan'an drove the car over, she saw Lu Chang'an standing at the intersection far away. She stopped the car and waved Lu Chang'an to get in the car. Why are you here? Get some air. You know what you are. Why did you knock me out just now? Zhu Huntang was woken up by Qin Yan'an. Qin Yan'an was still a little worried about Zhu Huntang, so he wanted to shake her awake to see if there was really nothing wrong with her. As a result, Zhu Huntang after Tang woke up, he was furious. When Lu Chang'an got on the car, Zhu Huntang rushed over. Although she was very afraid of Lu Chang'an's strength in the past, now the little fairy also has a bad temper and can't control so much. She dances and tries to deal with Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand and pressed Zhu Huntang's face to push her away. Zhu Huntang had no choice but to punch or kick Lu Chang'an. I'm going to bite you to death. Lu Chang'an put his hand on his face. Zhu Huntang simply opened his mouth and tried to bite the palm of his hand. Feeling that his palms were wet with saliva, Lu Chang'an said disgustingly, I haven't washed my hands for a long time today. Zhu Huntang opened his mouth and stared blankly as if he had been shot, and asked fearfully, then did you go to urinate? That's not true. Lu Chang'an didn't have the habit of not washing his hands after going to the toilet. Zhu Huntang felt a little more relieved now, but he had no intention of arguing with Lu Chang'an anymore. While imagining the countless bacteria on Lu Chang'an's palms attacking his pure and clean mouth, he took a bottle of water and gargled his mouth quickly. Qin Yan'an couldn't help but smile. Lu Chang'an was really able to deal with Zhu Huntang with just one move. When he saw him looking up and looking at her, Qin Yan'an quickly turned around and stopped the car in a hurry, almost hitting the coffin. I recommend a book called Why Is It the Circle of Divine Punishment Again? It comes with the circle of divine punishment when you land. You have to rely on the bombing zone to wash your hair. The only resource is a crossbow, and the vehicle never has 1 bar of oil. Bombing is like the wind, always with me. The road is long and only the poison will accompany you. This is a story about becoming the king of chickens while taking the scourge circle and the bombing zone along the way. I recommend a book called Why Is It the Circle of Divine Punishment Again? It comes with the circle of divine punishment when you land. You have to rely on the bombing zone to wash your hair. The only resource is a crossbow, and the vehicle never has 1 bar of oil. Bombing is like the wind, always with me. The road is long and only the poison will accompany you. This is a story about becoming the king of chickens while taking the scourge circle and the bombing zone along the way. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 313. The last 2 rows of seats in the car can be folded down, forming a very large loading space. After Qin Yan'an packed the car, Lu Chang'an carried the coffin and put it in. After Zhu Huntang washed his mouth, he returned to the car and touched the coffin. Is this the big box we are here for? This is a coffin, Qin Yan'an said, getting ready to drive. Zhu Huntang was startled, quickly retracted his hand, washed the handle again, and then said fearfully, Are we here to rob the tomb? Are there any zombies here? It's not tomb robbing, there are no zombies. Lu Chang'an asked Qin Yan'an to sit behind him. I'll drive. You're tired too, so take a good rest. Qin Yan'an originally wanted to say that he wasn't tired, but seeing Lu Chang'an's tone of not wanting to comment, he had no choice but to sit down with Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang was still covering her face with her palms, peeking at the coffin behind her through the gaps between her fingers. After Qin Yanan sat down, she ran over and squeezed into Qin Yanan's arms to act coquettishly. "Yaya, let's go back tomorrow and let Lu Chang'an do it by himself. I'm scared to send this thing back. I have to go to work tomorrow, don't be afraid. It's not the kind of coffin that buries dead people in the cemetery. This is a treasure, a treasure, a treasure." Fortunately, Qin Yanan didn't say the word treasure. She had already. "I can no longer look at this word." Hearing what Qin Yanan said, Zhu Huntang suddenly realized that it was probably just a big box shaped like a coffin. Zhu Huntang is only afraid of coffins with dead people or zombies in them. If there is nothing in them, then there is nothing. But since Zhu Huntang had successfully occupied Qin Yanan's arms, of course he rested comfortably on Qin Yanan's chest and refused to go down. Qin Yanan didn't care about her, turned the seat next to her and put her legs on it to lie down. With her current physical condition, she had no problem holding such a coquettish little fairy who loved to rub her chest pillow. What happened tonight occupied her entire body. The mind needs to be sorted out and recalled slowly. "Lu Chang'an, I hate you so much," Zhu Huntang said comfortably. "Each other. Bah, you're even more annoying. Each other. Anyway, I hate you a little more than you hate me. Okay, you win." Zhu Huntang was a little bored and asked again, "We ran all night just for this coffin. What kind of treasure is it?" Qin Yanan's ears were slightly red, her eyes were closed and she didn't speak. "Don't you know? Every sect has its treasure. This coffin is the treasure of our Zhu Fenglai sword section. Driving is a boring thing. It sounds like it's very powerful. Our Zhu Fenglai sword sect is a sect with ancient heritage, which can be traced back to the Western Han dynasty. It has a royal background. To be precise, a certain emperor at that time was the ancestor of our section. The more you talk, the more blind you become. The Kyushu Fenglai sword sect was established just last month. Forget it, I won't tell you anymore. You don't believe it anyway. Just keep talking. You can talk even if I don't believe you." "Did not say. You said." Zhu Huntang raised his legs and put his feet on the back of the driver's seat, intending to kick Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an first smelled a certain aroma with warmth and skin heat, and immediately raised the phone in his hand. Zhu Huntang was startled and quickly retracted his feet. To be honest. At dawn, Lu Chang'an drove back to Juncha and sent Qin Yanan and Zhu Huntang to Lushan Mountain. Qin Yanan was energetic and made breakfast for Lu Chang'an. Zhu Huntang was picked up by Zhongqing, who was waiting at Lushan Mountain. When she went back, she clamored to catch up on her sleep. If she didn't sleep for more than 8 hours a day, she would become imperfect. After making an appointment with Qin Yanan at school, Lu Chang'an drove the armored off-road vehicle back to the community. Taking advantage of the fact that little animals like Zhou Dongdong were not up and running around in the community, Chang'an tore down the door of the room downstairs, raised his hand and pounded 2 rows of bricks down, and then he had enough width to carry the coffin into the room. Relocation. Lu Chang'an temporarily put the door panel up and went upstairs to find a bag of cement and a masonry knife in his room. He poured a pile of cement powder, inserted a hole in the middle, poured in water and stirred slowly, and then Lu Chang'an used a masonry knife to scrape the cement again and paste the wall. After installing the door, you're done. At the same time, you put away the power strip hanging down upstairs. Lu Chang'an closed the door and sat on his bed. This was a more private place where he could easily communicate with Shang Guandandan. "This is my home, do you want to come out?" Lu Chang'an said to Shang Guandandan. "Not coming out. If you don't want to come out, don't come out." Lu Chang'an let her go. "From now on, the door will be closed. If you want to come out, you can come out. If you don't come out, you will stay in the coffin. After you come out, you can adapt to this small environment first. Come on, there are many things here that you haven't seen in more than 2,000 years, so please take your time. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he pointed to the socket, you can charge your baby here. After walking out of the house, Lu Chang'an looked at the armored off-road vehicle and sent a message to Zhongqing, asking her to find someone to drive it back. There was no need to contact Zhuntang for this kind of matter, and the little fairy also handed it over to Zhongqing. I hope that I can be quieter during this period. Lu Chang'an thought of Professor Crick and felt a little emotional. This scientist who made the greatest contribution in the history of biology in the 20th century had given up on the traditional path of scientific research and no longer wanted to explore the origin of life. Base, and chose to become M.R.S. Karnstein's partner, or just a subordinate or something. If I now start over and continue my unfinished research path, how far can I go? After the double helix structure of DNA, when will there be another discovery that can truly reveal the origin of life? Lu Chang'an just wants to know more. This is the purest intention of scientific research and exploration, rather than using these things to gain any benefits or gain any influence. Lu Chang'an looked up at the sky and lowered his head and made a circle of friends. The sky and the earth are dark and yellow, the universe is ancient, the sun and the moon are waxing, the stars are arranged, the cold comes and the summer comes, the autumn harvests and the winter hides, the leap years become old, and the lalu adjusts the sun. After a brief sigh of relief, Lu Chang'an calmed down his thoughts. Countless years have passed like this. Let's lie peacefully. Even if it means waiting until the end of the entire universe, it will be a kind of satisfaction. Zhou Dongdong leaned in front of Lu Chang'an, stood on tiptoe and stuffed a packet of soy milk into Lu Chang'an's mouth. Lu Chang'an lowered his head and bit the soy milk bag. Brother Chang'an, I have a good friend in school. She brought a lot of delicious food to school yesterday, and we hid and ate it, Zhou Dongdong said with some concern. Oh, two little pigs. But I also want to bring delicious food to school for her to eat. What should I bring? Zhou Dongdong was in a dilemma. Spicy strips. She can't eat food from the canteen. She said she would get diarrhea if she secretly eats food from the canteen. Isn't a child without spicy strips perfect? Can I bring a bowl of rice noodles to school for her to eat? Zhou Dongdong thought about it and decided that this was the only option. After all, he sells rice noodles at home. You're such a genius. Zhou Dongdong immediately felt that he was smart and brave, so he planned to run upstairs to ask his mother to help him make rice noodles, but Lu Chang'an caught him and pulled him back by the collar. Let's go, I'll get you some candies. Lu Chang'an gave Zhou Dongdong a little finger to hold, and led her out of the community. Sorry, my chirp is broken. When I update a 10,000-word chapter one day, it will grow back. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 314. In the morning, the city is filled with mist that spreads from the river, layer by layer, and clouds. It reminds Lu Chang'an of the past during the cotton harvest season after autumn, when there would be craftsmen carrying equipment to play cotton and make quilts. I went to farmers' houses in the countryside and flicked the cotton into fluffy wadding. The soft and spread look was like the mist in front of me. The cotton wool spread on the bed, the fog spread on the city. I put on a quilt and waited for the cold winter, waiting for the fog to dissipate in the city, and what greeted me was the slanting morning sun, which seemed to be not as high as Building 1 of Bailong Center. The high-rise buildings stretching into the mist are lined with trees and there are no pedestrians around. It reminds people of the empty scenes often seen in science fiction movies. Where are we going to find candies? Zhou Dongdong held Lu Chang'an's finger and shook and jumped up and down. Ask for it from the little fairy. The little fairy will pull up her skirt and shake it, and lots of sparkling candies will fall down. Then what should we give her? Zhou Dongdong was in trouble again. This is different from others taking the initiative to give themselves food. If you go to others to ask for things, you have to give them to others. Brother Chang'an has given them a lot of things at home before, so now it's okay to ask them for candies. Ouch! Don't bark like a dog. Oh! Lu Chang'an did not call Zhu Huntang directly, but asked Zhong Qing to see if he and Zhou Dongdong would go up and get it, or if she could get it, whichever was convenient. Zhong Qing suggested that he and Zhou Dongdong go up and get it, because it depends on what kind of candy the child likes. Mr. is asleep. Zhong Qing smiled unconsciously when he saw Lu Chang'an taking the children. For Zhong Qing, she must have been such a little girl back then, but she didn't have a big brother who could hold her little finger and lead her around. I know, so I didn't bother her. Lu Chang'an likes to be kind to others, so Zhu Huntang finally provided help last night. Lu Chang'an will also consider her emotions and will not ignore her. We are in the sky again. Zhou Dongdong looked at the clouds and mist outside the floor-to-ceiling glass walls. The clouds and mist outside the window are reflected on the floor, changing and flowing, and it does not feel like the same world as the space downstairs. The fairy is sleeping, otherwise she will come to play with you. Zhong Qing pressed his hands on his lower abdomen, lowered his head and smiled while talking to Zhou Dongdong. Sister, you are also a fairy. Zhou Dongdong leaned on Lu Chang'an's thigh, tilted his head to observe Zhong Qing, and then said happily. Zhong Qing was not happy. He raised his hand to cover his mouth and laughed so hard that his branches trembled. Are you so happy? Where are you making fans? Lu Chang'an also decided to tease Zhong Qing. Zhong Qing stopped laughing immediately and gave Lu Chang'an a rollicking look. Of course she would put some powder on her face when working, but her makeup was always impeccable, so how could she shake off any powder? Is that worthy of staying with the third wife and the third young lady? When a girl is praised as a fairy, this kind of satisfaction and secret pleasure is something that a guy like Lu Chang'an cannot understand. Zhong Qing did not lower his favorability towards Zhou Dongdong because of this, and took Zhou Dongdong to Zhu Huntang's candy house. Yes, Zhu Huntang has a room for storing candies, and it is named Candy House. All the candies are beautifully, meticulously, and professionally displayed, because many candies require specific conditions such as temperature, humidity, vacuum, nitrogen, etc. to store. Don't get excited, breathe well, stop pouting your mouth forward, your eyes are going to fall off. Lu Chang'an took Zhou Dongdong and patted her back, stroked her chest, and rubbed her face to bring her back to consciousness. Can we exchange for rice noodles in the future? Zhou Dongdong and Lu Chang'an bit their ears. Is that okay? Lu Chang'an looked at Zhong Qing expectantly. Zhong Qing smiled and nodded. Although Lu Chang'an could make people feel breathless most of the time, when he and Zhou Dongdong were together, not only Zhou Dongdong was cute, but he was also much cuter. Lu Chang'an and Zhou Dongdong successfully entered the Heavenly Palace, triggered the plot of praising the NPC fairies, obtained candies, and completed the mission. Back home, Zhou Shuling was wriggling under the parasol tree. She has not been as busy as before recently. Although the store will definitely have to be worked on for a while, if she does not have to get up early and stay late, she still has time to exercise, especially since Zhou Shuling feels that her buttocks it's getting bigger. I suspect this is a sign of gaining weight, so I need to exercise quickly. Where have you been so early in the morning? Zhou Shuling stopped broadcasting gymnastics and relied entirely on memory, so she was afraid of jumping into the wrong Lu Chang'an joke. I'll go to Zhu Huntang's place to get some candies for Zhou Dongdong. Lu Chang'an took one and chewed it in his hand, then broke off the other half and gave it to Zhou Shuling. Zhou Shuling tasted it and then looked at the box containing the candy in Zhou Dongdong's hand. Isn't this expensive? Lu Chang'an waved his finger to signal Zhou Shuling not to talk about this. Zhou Dongdong was still very happy and told his mother that his good friend invited him to eat candy. You go back and pack your school bag. Zhou Shuling touched Zhou Dongdong's head. Zhou Dongdong happily went upstairs like a small plane. Isn't this a bit of a comparison? Zhou Shuling asked Lu Chang'an for his opinion. Although she was a mother, she felt that she did not have any authoritative confidence in educating children. Children also have self-esteem and psychology. It sounds like the candies brought by her good friends are not cheap. We can't really let Zhou Dongdong bring a bowl of rice noodles, maybe they won't mind, but the children will, and if you talk about things at school at home, some parents will find it funny and won't care. Some parents may hurt Zhou Dongdong through their own children. Lu Chang'an paused and didn't say more about the influence of parents. Anyway, people's hearts are there is no way to determine what will happen to this kind of thing. Whether there has been a reciprocal exchange is one thing, and how it will be exchanged in the future is another matter. Zhou Shuling nodded as if she understood. Anyway, she couldn't tell Lu Chang'an, so he would be whatever he said. If Lu Chang'an would harm Zhou Dongdong, Zhou Shuling would not believe it. You are really good at taking care of children, Zhou Shuling said with admiration. You were born well, Lu Chang'an also complimented. Bah, I usually always say that Dongdong is so stupid because of me, mother-in-law. Zhou Shuling said this, still a little proud. I'm going to the military training, and I have to buy a new pair of shoes today. When the sun comes out later, help me take out the chili sauce and wheat paste to dry. Okay, it smells delicious. Don't eat it secretly. I'm not Dongdong. The two of us are almost the same. No. When Zhou Shuling helped Lu Chang'an dry the chili seasoning, she dipped her finger into some of the reddish edges and tasted it. It was really delicious. She just tasted it, and it wasn't considered stealing at all. Surprise update, please vote for me. While Lanjiji was restless, I broke through the seal of the bed and coded a chapter. You may still be short and weak, but my efforts have been exhausted. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 315. The sun was shining in the sky, and the birds were chirping and flying around to poop. When the fog dispersed, the sunlight became less gentle without the scattering of moisture in the air. Lu Chang'an walked to the campus walking on the asphalt sprayed by the water bubble truck. When passing by a square, you can see students reading with headphones on, elderly people doing tai chi, middle-aged men wearing shorts and short sleeves to warm up, and children standing in a neat row waiting for the school bus. The most eye-catching thing is it was Guan Yuan who was playing parallel bars, and a group of old, middle-aged, and young people gathered around him, including a few seniors with warm eyes but not so green eyes. Lu Chang'an also came over to take a look, and saw Guan Yuan wearing a pair of three-quarter pants, doing various parallel bar movements flexibly and quickly, including hanging swings, flexion and extension, twists, loops, tumbling, somersaults, etc. The changes were endless. Although he looked at it, turns out that he is not very proficient in routines, nor has he studied performance techniques. He only relies on strength and reaction to operate, but it is also amazing. Guan Yuan caught Lu Chang'an's arrival out of the corner of his eye, and couldn't help but feel happy. He quickly performed a series of difficult turns, which caused applause and screams from the senior students. Guan Yuan also noticed that Lu Chang'an was also enthusiastic, applauding. Frowning slightly, he did two more difficult moves and then backflips to the ground. He raised his hands steadily to signal, like a gymnastics prince in the Olympics. Guan Yuan stretched out his fingers and moved them towards where Lu Chang'an was just now, only to find that Lu Chang'an actually ran away in the blink of an eye after giving him a warm applause. Now standing in Lu Chang'an's position was a slightly fat girl. When she saw Guan Yuan hooking her fingers, she looked around at the sisters around her with some pride. Then she restrained her pride and walked over shyly. You call me. I didn't call you, chubby. Guan Yuan pushed the girl away impatiently, picked up the mobile phone and mobile phone holder placed aside under the stunned eyes of the other girls, and left. Guan Yuan is live broadcasting. Guan Yuan held his mobile phone and responded to the audience in his live broadcast room while live broadcasting. He had just started live broadcasting and there were not many viewers, but there was no doubt that with his own strength, he could live broadcast too much content. Guan Yuan believed given time, he will definitely become popular. Under the coercion of the cafeteria ant, Guan Yuan paid the fine and wrote for the inspection. Guan Yuan did not care about the trivial matter. He called the school leaders and asked the cafeteria staff to tremble and fear in front of him. Based on his current situation, in terms of influence, there is no way to sit on it for the time being. He has discovered that it is unreliable to expect his future based on the plots he has seen in novels. He must find his own way. When searching the internet for relevant information about his situation, Guan Yuan accidentally searched for Lu Chang'an, and then he was surprised to find that fortunately, he was no longer what he used to be, otherwise such an old enemy would be a big trouble. It is certainly not reliable to use the plot of a novel to guide life, but it gives Guan Yuan confidence. Wouldn't a protagonist like himself meet a supporting character who is perfect in all aspects, with strong force value and a dazzling fighting history? Impressive academic performance, school belle-level girlfriend, of course. As the plot develops, all the halo of this supporting character belongs to Guan Yuan, and the supporting character's school belle girlfriend will also understand who her true love is, which she may not be able to do. Take everything and the like. After all, a beautiful girl like An Nuan has been in love with Lu Chang'an for so long, and it is impossible not to have a relationship with Lu Chang'an. Who cares? What's more, An Nuan must be just one of his future girlfriends, and there is a wealthy lady like Zhu Huntang. Guan Yuan has learned a lot of information related to Lu Chang'an, as well as him, from social media such as the school postbar and group chat. The beautiful girl next to me. If Guan Yuan wants to completely surpass Lu Chang'an, the first thing he needs to do is live broadcast, because it is said that Lu Chang'an's battle to become famous was on the internet live broadcast. The anchor Ma Benwei, who was taught a lesson by Lu Chang'an, is very famous, so the video of Ma Benwei being taught a lesson has been saved and widely publicized. Spread. First make a name for yourself in the live streaming industry, and then you can also make money. Isn't that killing two birds with one stone? Guan Yuan greeted the few viewers in the live broadcast room and then went off the air. Guan Yuan came to the roadside and waited. After a while, he saw a luxury SUV with a B logo parked. Ma Benwei led a husky out of the car. Guan Yuan was about to say hello to Ma Benwei when he saw the husky running wildly to the side of the road, digging hard into a girl's crotch and pushing it with its nose. The girl screamed in fright and ran away quickly. Ma Benwei laughed. The girl was so ashamed that she glared at Ma Benwei, but she didn't dare to do anything to Ma Benwei. She lowered her head and ran away quickly. Brother Ma, Guan Yuan then greeted Ma Benwei. He contacted Ma Shilong in the name of live broadcast cooperation. Ma Benwei came to visit his live broadcast room and also watched some short videos recorded by Guan Yuan. He felt that Guan Yuan, since he was a talented person, he agreed to meet Guan Yuan. Hey, a human weapon? Your name is quite good. Ma Benwei thumped Guan Yuan's chest muscles. Oh, that's solid. You can just sell rotten meat or sell meat if you follow the path of a muscle brother. Ma Benwei already had his own fan base and was not afraid of cultivating competitors, so he casually gave Guan Yuan some pointers. I don't understand anything yet. Guan Yuan glanced at Ma Benwei's luxury car and couldn't help but feel a little envious. He couldn't rush it, he would have all this sooner or later. Take your time, we can indeed cooperate. For live streaming, you have to be stupid enough to let other idiots see that you are even stupider, giving them a sense of superiority, because they are usually idiots, and it is difficult to find a sense of superiority in reality. So they like to watch people who are more stupid than themselves. You either have talent and take a higher end route. Although this kind of fans are more picky and don't have the feeling that people are stupid and have a lot of money, you are more likely to get promotion resources and can get on the stage. In the long run, there will be more development prospects. Ma Shilong pulled the husky's trembling limbs and looked at Guan Yuan with squinted eyes. Actually, you can slowly explore and operate by yourself, why did you come to me? Ma Benwei is not stupid either. He always feels that Guan Yuan has ulterior motives. His own entertainment company basically recruits female anchors, and there are very few people like Guan Yuan who can produce content. Because I know you have a grudge against Lu Chang'an. Guan Yuan showed a confident smile. Ma Benwei's expression changed slightly. Seeing Ma Benwei's expression, Guan Yuan became even more convinced that people like Lu Chang'an had offended too many people. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Not only can we cooperate on the live broadcast, but we can also take revenge on Lu Chang'an. Cooperate. You. Get out of here as far away as you want, don't look for me. Ma Benwei pulled his husky and hurried back to the car. After 8 lifetimes of bad luck, he encountered such a fool. Fortunately, this young master stepped back from the brink and discovered the hidden danger immediately with his unparalleled wit. Otherwise, if he would have been too deeply involved with Guan Yuan in the future, what would be the point? Brother Ma. What do you mean? Do you want to just forget about being turned into a windmill by Lu Chang'an? Can you bear this? Guan Yuan hurriedly caught up and said to Ma Benwei while climbing up the car window. Lu Chang'an and I, me and brother Lu, brother Chang'an, we are good friends, the kind of iron buddies. I'm mad at your mother, don't, you little baby, I'll stop you from tripping over your head. Ma Benwei ran off as soon as he stepped on the accelerator. Guan Yuan watched Ma Benwei's high-profile serial-numbered license plate and millions of luxury cars run away like a lost dog. He couldn't help but be puzzled. Ma Benwei seemed to have been beaten stupid by Lu Chang'an. He hadn't made any plans yet. He and Lu Chang'an, in fact, there is no deep hatred. I am just pursuing a clear idea and taking care of this small role when I move towards another peak life. Zhu Zi couldn't get along with him, so Guan Yuan put on a t-shirt and went back. I strongly recommend a light-hearted and funny novel about cultivating immortals. I may be a fake immortal, with various counter-routine and reversal operations, as well as interesting plots. It is funny and refreshing, and you will definitely not be able to put it down. There is a foreshadowing that is often obvious but no one notices in this book, but of course, it is not in this chapter. Please give me a monthly recommendation vote, thank you all for your generous tips. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 316. Lu Chang'an has already recognized Guan Yuan. This kid is generally an idiot, but considering his passion for gymnastics, he can be considered a human being. This year's National Gymnastics Championship will be held at Shonan University in late October and early November. It is the highest level gymnastics event in the country and will be attended by athletes, coaches, referees and officials from more than 20 provincial and municipal teams across the country. Including Zhang Chenglong, Fan Yilin, Lin Kaipan and other current Olympic and world champions and several national games champions will compete for the 12 gold medals. Retired famous players Li Jing, Yang Wei, Li Xiaopeng, Huang Su, Lu Xian, and others will be invited to the scene. Observe. Lu Chang'an no longer participates in sports, but he is very interested in watching sports, such as watching An Nuan play volleyball. He can clearly feel that with the development of the country's economy, the rise of national strength, and more places where people can gain national pride, the people are not so concerned about medals in world competitions such as the Olympic Games. The pressure on athletes has also been reduced a lot, which has both advantages and disadvantages for them to enjoy the game and improve their competitive level. It doesn't mean that if you can do better, you won't be interested in watching the performances of people who are not as good as yourself. Just like adults who watch children's gymnastics or fighting competitions in the younger age group, they will also watch their wonderful operations at a young age. They were amazed, roared, and clapped. The enjoyment of sports competitions comes more from the spirit of athletes when they compete. It is a kind of beauty that is difficult to appreciate for those who only see medals. Lu Chang'an went to find An Nuan first. He calculated the time. At this time, En Nuan should check attendance in the girls' dormitory. En Nuan jumped down after receiving Lu Chang'an's call, followed by several girls. "Hi, Bai Wanwan," Lu Chang'an greeted Bai Wanwan. Bai Wanwan was also a fairy. "I remember that time we went to Yangui Lake for an outdoor barbecue. Bai Wanwan and Luo Pin were the only two people who walked around but couldn't find a place. It was Bai Hui who found them in the end." "Handsome guy," Bai Wanwan winked openly and walked away with a smile after being slapped by En Nuan. Several other girls smiled and signaled, but one of them didn't smile and looked extra reserved. She said see you soon to En Nuan and left. Lu Chang'an and En Nuan watched them leave together. En Nuan then faced the front, turned slightly to the side and lowered her voice and said, "The last person who spoke to me was Zhao Xiaotong. She was the one who said in the dormitory that she really wanted to get to know you. Look at her, if she has nothing wrong with her, why would she pretend to be reserved? Everyone else greets you openly, but she is a bit special, she wants to attract your attention." Lu Chang'an suddenly realized that he agreed with En Nuan's point of view. "Look, are you a bitch? That's right if you say so. You perfunctory me. What's going to happen? You must first show a thoughtful expression, then nod cautiously, first say that it seems to be a little bit, then analyze it and express your agreement, and finally say with a final tone, yes, that's right, you are the bitch among all bitches. There is nothing to hide under my girlfriend's sharp eyes." And Nuan looked very willing to forgive Lu Chang'an. After all, his training days were still short. Lu Chang'an showed a thoughtful expression, and then nodded cautiously. "There is a point, I think her unique performance is easy to attract attention." "Yes, that's right, you have discovered it?" And Nuan chuckled, holding his hand and shaking it to reward him with her own happiness. "What do you want from me? There's something wrong. At this time, you have to say, can't I come to you if I have nothing to do? I just want to see you. This is the correct answer. Are you done yet? I'm flirting with you, and why do you need to teach me? You're just a master of your own trade." Lu Chang'an stopped cooperating and took out a box from his bag. En Nuan was stamping her feet to express her anger at his lack of cooperation, but her attention was immediately attracted by this little black box. Last time Lu Chang'an brought facial cream, what was he going to do this time? The small black box looked a bit old, and some of the foreskin at the corners had worn off, revealing the bronze color inside. Lu Chang'an opened it and took out a huge magnifying glass. "What are you doing?" Lu Chang'an would bring a magnifying glass with him when he comes to see his girlfriend. Does he want to play with himself and burn ants with a magnifying glass? And Nuan felt that she must refuse and show love. How can you burn ants when they are so innocent and cute, and so on. "Let me check your skin." Lu Chang'an blew the magnifying glass. Although this action was not very scientific, it looked more powerful and professional. "No," and Nuan hurriedly ran behind the tree next to her. "You have applied facial cream. Let me check how the cream improves the details and fusion of your skin." Although Lu Chang'an's eyesight ability is far beyond that of ordinary people, he has not evolved the power of a microscope. For such a rough inspection, a magnifying glass is very good. Used. It's very useful. It's improved a lot, no need to check it anymore. And Nuan refused without hesitation. "What are you afraid of? It's not an injection." "I'm not afraid of injections, the skin under the magnifying glass is ugly." How could a girl never see photos of partially enlarged skin? A girl usually needs skin resurfacing when taking pictures, hoping that her face will be as smooth as a mirror, without any details. Now you use a magnifying glass to look at her skin? The reason why he didn't get beaten up by his violent girlfriend after doing this was probably just because he was Lu Chang'an, and he gave him extremely precious facial cream. Under a magnifying glass, the skin will reveal countless fine wrinkles, large pores, dirt in the pores, and even mites, fibrous fat, greasiness, and abscesses. As for the red and swollen lines of skin damage, it is nothing more than pediatrics. It's not ugly. A face covered with acne can't be seen under a magnifying glass. Your skin is so good, I can only see your pores at most. Lu Chang'an persuaded. Good boy, do you still want me to make it for you? Better cream. Coax him over first and then talk. This was too tempting. And Nuan hid behind a tree and hesitated. Then you can't look at it with a magnifying glass and think I have bad skin and feel disgusted? No. You're so verbose. If you don't come over here, I'll carry you over. And Nuan pouted, put her hands behind her back, and hummed you bully me, I don't like you anymore and the like, and sat on the stone bench. Lu Chang'an came over with a magnifying glass. And Nuan glared at him, then closed his eyes, with an expression as if he was looking forward to death. Lu Chang'an stretched out his finger, scratched the side of Nuan's face with his fingernails, and then examined it carefully with a magnifying glass. Facial creams will definitely improve Nuan's skin, but is this improvement mainly focused on repairing and replenishing nutrients and moisture like ordinary cosmetics, or is it a deeper transformation? This is what Lu Chang'an wants to observe. After looking at it for a while, Lu Chang'an put away the magnifying glass, and then took out a notebook and pen. How about it? And Nuan opened her eyes and threatened, if you dare to dislike me, I won't like you right away. That was really scary. Hey. Lu Chang'an wrote in the notebook, neutral skin, healthy and elastic, the pores seem to have shrunk, but it does not affect perspiration, the skin is rosy, clean, and shiny, and there is no damage or striped wheals after gentle scraping with a blunt object. The recovery ability of the muscle base is enhanced. There are no fine lines around the eyes when there is no expression, and the oil secretion on both sides of the nose is less than that of ordinary neutral skin, but the skin feels warm to the touch, the subcutaneous hypertrophy is moderate, and the local temperature is moderate. Summary, she looks better. And Nuan looked nervously at what he wrote at first, but the last sentence made Nuan squeal with pride. She refrained from acting coquettishly and raised her neck proudly. This is just the simplest examination. In the future, tissues will be extracted for further examination, which will require the use of various microscopes and biological laboratories, Lu Chang'an said as he put away his pen and notebook. Do you think of me as a specimen? And Nuan couldn't help laughing as she imagined herself being sandwiched between two pieces of glass to make an observation sample, and Lu Chang'an placed it under a huge microscope. I major in biology, so of course I can study the human body. As my girlfriend, isn't it natural to provide samples as specimens? Lu Chang'an smiled and touched Nuan's head. It seems that medical students also like to test what they have learned on their subjects, and Nuan understood Lu Chang'an's current behavior. When we have sex in the future, we will need you to provide more samples. That is the focus of the inspection. Lu Chang'an put the magnifying glass box, books, and pens into his skull bag and prepared to leave. And Nuan looked at Lu Chang'an dumbfounded. What's wrong? You just said that what happened to us? After Nuan finished speaking, she bit her lip. She suspected that she had heard wrong. She took the initiative to kiss her elm-shaped boyfriend after more than a month of official dating. It can't be so bold, right? Relationship, make love, sex life, generally refers to fixed or unfixed sexual contact in order to satisfy one's own needs, including hugging, kissing, caressing, etc., but in addition to natural behaviors based on mutual love, because I need you to get. And Nuan quickly covered his mouth and looked around with a red face. Lu Chang'an bit Nuan's finger. And Nuan quickly let go of his mouth in a panic. What happened to Lu Chang'an today? Lu Chang'an smiled, opened his hands, and hugged Nuan forcefully into his arms. And Nuan let go of her hands and spread her palms by her sides, like the wings of a bird. Her big eyes moved shyly in her eye sockets. She just felt a little strange, but she was not angry. Lu Chang'an seemed to be serious and not joking. Because I want you to stay with me for a long, long time. Lu Chang'an said in Nuan's ear. Nuan's ears were itching, and she felt a little bit amused. Does this fool think that only after having sex can he get her and she will stay with him for a long, long time? Embracing it brings peace, accompanying it brings warmth. It starts with heartbeat and ends with a white head. Nuan has never thought of being just a short-term passerby in your life, Nuan raised her hand and hugged Lu Chang'an. She could see with my hand on his shoulder, there seemed to be many little vixens around him. Can I hold him with my own hands forever? Friendly recommendation is an extremely powerful book, The Invincible Little Emperor by Jian Shuihu. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 317. When Lu Chang'an turned around in the morning light, he met the girls who had returned from breakfast. Bai Wanwan greeted Lu Chang'an. Zhao Xiaotong still glanced at Lu Chang'an lightly, his eyes widened, as if he had thought of something. Facing the other direction and smiling, he had a soft side face. Lu Chang'an thought for a while, and Nuan made many requests for his cooperation today, but did not mention how he should face Zhao Xiaotong. That probably meant that there were no requests, so Lu Chang'an ignored them, twitched the corner of his mouth as a greeting and left. He's so cool, Ding Lin sighed with emotion. If I were to be so awesome, I would be worth 25,000 to 80,000 yuan more than him, Gu Meng also said. When you have a boyfriend, you will also hope that your boyfriend will act like a millionaire when facing other girls, Bai Wanwan said with great understanding. Let me tell you something, there turned out to be a very beautiful girl in our class. It was said that Lu Chang'an had been in love with her for 3 years. Then during a KTV singing session, many people confessed to the girl. In fact, the girl also liked Lu Chang'an, too. I was waiting for him to confess, but Lu Chang'an directly said that the girl he had liked for 3 years was Nuan, and that girl was so childish that she now wanted to compete with Nuan and steal Lu Chang'an away. It's so exciting. That's so embarrassing. Is that girl in our school now? Then I can't say. It's not such a coincidence, it's too bloody. Yin and Yang generate Tai Chi generates Liang Yi, 2 Yi generates 4 symbols, and 4 symbols generates Bagua. This is Bagua. As for what it has become, you don't need to worry about it, because Yin and Yang used to be chaotic, that is, messy. There are no men who don't cheat. Many men look the same on the surface, but secretly come to you and ask for WeChat when they get the opportunity. Zhao Xiaotong listened to these things and sneered, maybe that woman has hooked up with Lu Chang'an, and Nuan just doesn't know. Several other girls looked at Zhao Xiaotong and felt that what she said was inappropriate. Zhao Xiaotong smiled quickly and said, it's just a joke, you won't take it seriously, right? Girls don't just fall apart because of a third person's gossip, so no one said anything and they went back together. Lu Chang'an went to the store to buy shoes. The open campus is dotted with many shops and supermarkets, large and small, many of which are run by family members of faculty and staff. Lu Chang'an walked into a store and asked about shoes for military training. The store had already prepared for this kind of business every year at this time. He casually pointed to the shelf in the corner for Lu Chang'an to find. Lu Chang'an found a pair and saw Yan Qingcheng walking in. Morning. Yan Qingcheng hesitated and said hello to Lu Chang'an. Morning. Lu Chang'an went to check out and picked up a bottle of orange juice. Yan Qingcheng bought a bottle of Laoganma and took a look at Lu Chang'an's orange juice. It feels weird for a person with the word orange in his name to always drink orange juice when he meets her, but it should be considered normal. After all, there are many people with the word orange in their name and they like to drink it. There are also many people who drink orange juice. Are you going to participate in military training today? As the person in charge of military training, Yan Qingcheng asked out of responsibility. Join. Why are you buying shoes? A broken pair. Yan Qingcheng nodded, looked at the new shoes in Lu Chang'an's hand, opened her mouth and said, actually, I can actually repair shoes. Ah, Lu Chang'an was a little surprised as he held his own orange juice, because this is really a skill that very few people can master. But it's okay. For a young man like you, it's normal to replace it with a new one if it breaks. After Yan Qingcheng finished speaking, he walked in the other direction without looking back. Lu Chang'an felt confused. Why did he become the young master? He clearly exuded the simple and frugal temperament of a poor scholar. This was his self-positioning in this life. Yan Qingcheng's words made him a little unhappy. It's rare to know how to repair shoes, but is there anything special about it? Lu Chang'an happens to know how to do it. When it comes to shoe repair, it also changes with the progress of human civilization. For example, in ancient times, humans often went barefoot, and bare feet were easily infected with parasites in tropical areas. Some people's feet would grow a thick layer of dirt, which could be scraped off over time. There are many bugs that burrow into the flesh and blood hidden inside. This is still the case in Africa. They repair their shoes by shaving their feet. When humans learned to make woven shoes, wooden shoes, animal skin shoes, cloth shoes, and other handmade shoes, shoe repair officially became a profession, and the shoemaker also appeared on the scene during this period. Many times, a shoemaker means that he can not only repair shoes, but also make shoes. In the era of developed material economy, more people are willing to be shoemakers instead of just shoe repairers. In modern society, a pair of shoes is rarely carefully maintained. After wearing them for 3 to 5 years and repairing them for another 3 years, the skill of repairing shoes is rare. There are also some people who buy sneakers but are reluctant to wear them. If they accidentally get caught in the rain or wash and stain, they may think about the possibility of repairing them. Most of the time, when shoes are broken, they should be thrown away or replaced. Lu Chang'an looked at his new shoes and couldn't help but think that he is really good at integrating into the lives of ordinary people. He is so meticulous and impeccable. After drinking the orange juice, Lu Chang'an threw the bottle into a trash can 50 meters away. Lu Chang'an went to the dormitory to change his shoes, then read for a while, and then went to the retired faculty and staff activity center with Sun Shutong and Qin's Haiqiang. I have already saved 5,600 diamonds, which is exactly 20 draws. I will upgrade Judas's Oath and Otto's Stigmata in 2 days. Maybe I will be in the spirit. Qin's Haiqiang said the game terminology that others could not understand. Enjoy yourself. At noon, everyone went to the cafeteria to eat together. Sun Shutong saw Wei Xuanyi and Yan Qingcheng sitting on both sides of a long table, so he went over and sat together. Wei Xuanyi said that he wanted to discuss with Yan Qingcheng. Classes in other colleges were very active in organizing various social gatherings and class activities. Should his own class also consider this? Wei Xuanyi still has some organizational skills in this area. Many of his abilities in college are actually based on his enthusiasm and his own positivity. Whether this ability reflects his future potential is hard to say. Seeing Lu Chang'an sit down, Wei Xuanyi couldn't help but glance at Lu Chang'an's dinner plate, which was just an ordinary dish and soup. The person opposite Yan Qingcheng seemed to have a really average family situation, so he ordered fried beans and pork and a free seaweed soup. Lu Chang'an actually also makes fried pork with beans and kelp soup. Yan Qingcheng also saw Lu Chang'an's dinner plate, was stunned for a moment, picked up the soup bowl and took a sip. Lu Chang'an, what a coincidence. You and Yan Qingcheng are really in tune with each other. The dishes and soups we ordered are exactly the same. What we want is seaweed soup. Do you have something? Wei Xuanyi wanted to talk about what he saw yesterday. After a while, but thinking of Yan Qingcheng's warning, I still held back. What are you talking about? Yan Qingcheng looked at Wei Xuanyi expressionlessly, I don't like such jokes. Don't be so serious, really, you can't even joke, Wei Xuanyi said with some embarrassment. Forget it, Lu Chang'an has a girlfriend. It's really inappropriate for you to say that. Ever since Wei Xuanyi became the person in charge of military training, Sun Shutong also felt that Wei Xuanyi sometimes took himself too seriously and was careless. After several people said a few words, they realized that Lu Chang'an had no reaction at all. He turned around and found that Lu Chang'an was looking in the other direction of the cafeteria. A girl in a lake green dress was sitting there with a meal in front of her. She was sitting in bed, with a book rolled up in her hand to cover her face, a strand of hair swaying on the edge of the book, and the forehead exposed above had clean and neat bangs, and the quiet and beautiful book temperament of the years was very gentle. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 318. People come and go in the middle of the cafeteria. The floor of the cafeteria always has a greasy and smooth feeling, which makes people think that such a girl should appear in a pavilion next to the river and willows in an ancient town, sitting like this. Holding the book like this, it looks like those young ladies who were still at ease 100 years ago. This girl has so much temperament. Yan Qingcheng also looked over. With gems like Qinyanan and Zhu Huntang in front of her, Yan Qingcheng was considered a person who had seen the world, so the focus was on temperament. What's more, the girl's face is blocked by her book. Under normal circumstances, when you talk about a person's good temperament without praising anything else, it is often because she may not be very good looking, or she exudes a charm that makes people appreciate her even more without being able to see her face. This girl in a lake green dress is in such a situation. She is a little far away, and ordinary people's eyesight can clearly see her extraordinarily delicate skin, and her silky and clean long hair is not stained with a trace of dust, but it makes people feel that if she moves away with that book, you will see the beauty bloom. I'll make a bet with you. She ate fried shredded potatoes, boiled cabbage and a sugar oil cake, Lu Chang'an said confidently when they all looked over there. Lu Chang'an's focus was a bit strange. Others looked at him, but no one bet with him. Bet on a bottle of orange juice. If I win, each of you will buy me a bottle of orange juice. If I lose, I will also buy you a bottle of orange juice. Lu Chang'an first said the bet. There must be a bet for this kind of thing. The bets are serious. That is to say, if you win, you want 4 bottles of orange juice. If you lose, you only buy 1 bottle of orange juice for the 4 of us, Yan Qingcheng said uncertainly, because it felt that no one was so obvious. Treacherous, right? Lu Chang'an nodded. You are so treacherous, who would bet with you? Qin's Haiqiang shook his head with a smile. If you lose, it's enough to buy a bottle for each of us, Sun Shutong said. When you walked in, did you peek at her dinner plate? Wei Xuanyi wondered if that was another beautiful girl Lu Chang'an knew. It feels like he knows this beautiful woman. Impossible, his love luck is so good, most people rarely have the opportunity to meet such a beautiful woman in their lifetime, and talking to them is very pleasing to the eye, and Lu Chang'an, Wei Xianyi thought about booking a hotel room, and couldn't help but think of the bath towel dropped on the floor, the messy bed and other scenes in his mind. Actually, it's very fair. If I lose, each of you will bear a quarter of the bet. But if I win, you should only get a quarter of the bet. Lu Chang'an took a bite of beans and said, is there anything wrong? Yan Qingcheng rolled her eyes at Lu Chang'an. Do you think we are pigs? If the 4 of us are as a whole, then the bet is 4 bottles of orange juice. If you lose, you have to give out 4 bottles of orange juice. Don't change it secretly. The concept of 2 quarters. Then I won't bet. The risk is too great. Lu Chang'an regretted that they were not that stupid. Boring. That girl has left, Qin's Haiqiang said. Lu Chang'an turned his head and saw only a back figure. He was immediately sure that this was the familiar figure he met at the beginning of school. He also saw it when he took Zhou Dongdong to eat at the buffet. We meet each other everywhere in life, so Lu Chang'an didn't pursue him to find out what happened. Sooner or later, we will meet again. After lunch, Wei Xuanyi continued to enthusiastically and actively discuss organizing class activities with Yan Qingcheng, and Lu Chang'an went back to the dormitory to read. At this time, he could appreciate Qin Yinan's attentiveness and consideration. Many times, a place where you can lie down can really make people feel more relaxed and relaxed. Any place where you can kill time, no bed will be more satisfying. So for most people, since a girlfriend is so hard to find and a wife is so difficult to get along with, then making a bed that suits them may improve their happiness. A holder for drinks and a bed full of snacks can be placed next to the bed. What about a storage bin or even a patient-style urinal? Then charge your mobile phone, or have a large screen tablet, and a few of your favorite books on the bedside table. In the dead of night or when no one is disturbing you, watch a wonderful pornographic novel or an action movie. Are there any girls? What does it matter about friends? This is happiness. Even with the existence of sage time, for men, the exhaustion and calmness afterwards make it easier for them to think about life and enter a relaxed sleep state, and the next morning the cock will crow and croak. The appearance can also make people satisfied with their full kidney essence. You must know that many people who have girlfriends or wives rarely experience this feeling of full body essence. I suddenly felt very empty. Qin's Haiqiang rolled over on the bed opposite Lu Chang'an. Is it done? Sun Shutong laughed loudly at the computer desk below. I just feel that the girls in the game can never really appear by my side. Qin's Haiqiang was inexplicably sad. The reasons why otakus complain about compiling new words are all very different. Then you are too superficial. This is not true love. Can't love break through the dimensional wall? When the new character comes out, you have to think of how difficult it was for her to be selected, modified, and revised repeatedly by countless behind-the-scenes planners. She came to you after repeated tests, and she was also in danger of being erased as discarded data. Now she finally lets you feel her cuteness and temptation. What reason do you have to not love her because she can't continue to break through the dimensional wall further? Where is she? Keep saving crystals to draw cards, Lu Chang'an said without looking up while looking down at the book. Speaking of which, she is more precious than a real girl being conceived. Qin's Haiqiang regained his energy with enlightenment, and immediately sat up and continued playing with his mobile phone. In fact, it was just because he liked 5,600 diamonds. I couldn't help but test the water by firing 10 consecutive shots, but the result was just a garbage guarantee. At this moment, every non-chief feels the emptiness and loss similar to that after everything is over. Lu Chang'an smiled, and the pages of the book that his fingertips missed seemed to be flowing through time. The lovely girls in the virtual world would eventually leave behind their voices, looks, and personalities, while those who passed away would only be left behind. They are just pictures in other people's memories, and isn't the storage of these pictures just data? Human beings will probably break away from the shackles of the body sooner or later and become a ball of data. Will human beings still exist at that time? Lu Chang'an thought this way, maybe he will become the last human being on Earth by then. After all, he has lived for so long, and it seems that humans will be freed from the shackles of the body in the near future. In this foreseeable time, he will always you can't die. So when all humans around the world enter the data server to exist, what will happen to your own life? He doesn't want to leave his body and live on a data server. It's too insecure for him. The feeling of such a future reminds Lu Chang'an of the time before human civilization opened the door to the modern world. At that time, the early scientists were not called scientists, and the word science did not even exist. They were wandering between two worlds. One was the Middle Ages where they were born and grew up, and the other was the New World that they could only glimpse a corner of. Those smart people, a man who is ambitious, full of confusion and contradictions. On the one hand, he believes in angels, alchemy, and devils, and on the other hand, he believes that the universe operates according to mathematical laws. Lu Chang'an thought that we have reached such a point in time. On the one hand, the aging problem of human beings cannot be solved due to birth, old age, illness and death. On the other hand, the digitization of human spirit and soul memories will last forever. What worries him is that if human consciousness is digitized, then they can be immersed in data time forever and construct endless wonderful universes and worlds. Are they still interested in the natural world outside? Lu Chang'an is a person who is extremely interested in the natural world. In 1699, the Royal Society held a meeting to debate the health benefits of drinking about a pint of cow urine. Lu Chang'an looked at the time and put down the book. Fortunately, I didn't drink it. Why did you suddenly talk about such a strange topic? Qin's Haiqiang asked. I remembered something, and this thing left a deep impression. Lu Chang'an said casually, let's go to participate in military training. A group of 3 people walked out of the dormitory and saw a helicopter flying over from a high and far place in the corridor. Like a shadow that alerts people, Sun Shutong's expression changed. Zhu Huntang's helicopter. Zhu Huntang's helicopter is definitely not the kind used to spread pesticides, observe hydrological traffic, or go sightseeing. Its huge size makes people feel like there might be a palace decorated inside. Sure enough, when the group passed by the place where Sun Shutong had memories of shame and anger, Zhu Huntang walked out of the building surrounded by lush forests. The smile on his face was elegant and impeccable, and his whole body exuded an alluring fragrance as sweet as candy. Sun Shutong ignored Lu Chang'an and Qin's Haiqiang and pretended not to see Zhu Huntang leave. Of course, Zhu Huntang did not see Sun Shutong. She might have felt that there was a person who reflected the light and formed an image in her eyes that activated her brain memory, but she consciously did not go further to judge who that person was. Turning a blind eye means just that. Classmate feeling that Qin's Haiqiang beside him was stiffening, Lu Chang'an patted him and reminded him that he was just a classmate, not his beloved two-dimensional beautiful girl who broke through the dimensional wall and came to reality. Hello, Zhu Huntang, hello. Qin's Haiqiang mustered up the courage to say hello. Hello, come to my house for some dry pot when you have time. Zhu Huntang warmly invited again. Okay, I'll leave first. Qin's Haiqiang still knew the difference between politeness and etiquette, nodded, and ran away nervously with his fists raised. Why are you coming to school again? Didn't Qin Yinan tell you to come to school less often if you have nothing to do? Forget about getting privileges and keep a low profile. Lu Chang'an reminded Zhu Huntang. I had a good sleep, and then Zhongqing reminded me that I have a distant cousin from Shanghai. The person from the Su family studied in our school before liberation and asked me to come and meet her. Zhu Huntang was interested. He said tiredly, I hate these kind of distant relatives the most. They just want to find a job in our family. They clearly don't know us at all. They call us sister, aunt, and grandma. It's annoying to death. If the Su family hadn't been able to spread its branches, thrive, and protect itself as a team, you would have been exterminated during the Jiangnan case. How would there be a chance for a fairy like you to come down to earth? Lu Chang'an waved his hand. Go ahead, don't come hang out in the military training area, be careful, I'll expel you again. Zhu Huntang stared at Lu Chang'an's back with bulging eyes. Why was his position so unstable? Why doesn't he fire Qin Yinan? It's really annoying. After scolding Lu Chang'an a few times in Hokkien, Zhu Huntang went to find his distant relatives. Hello everyone, is there any kind person who can give me some recommendation tickets and monthly passes? I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 319. Zhu Huntang did not take Zhongqing with her today because she found that the men and women on campus seemed to be more attracted to mature women like Zhongqing who had a clean and indifferent professional temperament. After all, many girls are looking forward to having a job like Zhongqing after graduation. Live like Zhongqing, and they see the future they expect from Zhongqing. A girl with a little bit of discernment can tell from Zhongqing's dress, handbag, and earrings that she earns a lot of money. There is no hope of expecting oneself to become a young lady like Zhu Huntang. It is more realistic to expect to become a better self and become a woman like Zhong Qing. As for those stupid male classmates who exuded excess hormones, like Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong, their eyes could not be separated from the ups and downs of Zonking's chest, watching them either pretending to be magnanimous or peeking in obscenely. The eyes are just annoying. This is definitely not because Zhu Huntang does not have such charm and does not take Zhong Qing. The third lady is not such a stingy person. After all, if she has such big breasts and others stare at her, she will be very angry. She would not go alone today to meet a stranger she had never met before, even if it was arranged by Zhong Qing and was said to be a relative. For example, if you are as rich as Ms. Susan, you can hardly travel on the fly. When she decides to go on vacation, she will definitely make an itinerary in advance, because the Zhu family's real estate and house may not be available in the local area. If you stay in a hotel, you will communicate with the hotel. Her travel manager will come to the local hotel room and ask a professional team to check the health conditions and change all bed sheets, quilt covers, pajamas, bathrobes, towels, bath towels, and any other things that are close to the skin. Of course, the bath care products should also be replaced with her favorite brands and types with her favorite scent. If you don't prepare in this way, why not just go to a place and stay in a hotel? For Zhu Huntang, if she lies on a bed with reused sheets and quilt covers, her skin will definitely rot. It's just a psychological feeling. Some people are as rich as Zhu Huntang, but they are not so picky and particular. But Zhu Huntang just likes this because she is a fairy and because she has to provide so many jobs for others to make money to support their families. The more money she spends, the more she spends. The more luxurious and sophisticated you are, the greater your contribution to society. Makes sense. Zhu Huntang also arranged for a van of people today. No, it was a van of people. Yes, it was right from the beginning. It was a van of people who had arrived in advance, and then she arrived at the newly built glass house of Hunan University before. This was the meeting place Zhong Qing gave her. The outer wall of the huge glass house is transparent, and you can see the household furnishings inside. However, there are dense shrubs and weeds as tall as a person's height around it. If you really want to see inside, you have to cross the gurgling ditch and push aside the long leaves. But it's not easy either. Come in. Zhu Huntang was looking up at a myna with shiny fur walking back and forth on the crossbar outside the birdcage. A girl wearing a lake green dress opened the door and greeted Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang immediately felt that the other party had no interest in being related to her, and probably had no interest in calling her third sister with a shy face and enthusiasm. Because this girl didn't even look at Zhu Huntang. Instead, it was as if Zhu Huntang came to her to meet her relatives. It was Zhu Huntang who would warmly greet her sisters one by one without knowing her at all. You have a high tone. Zhu Huntang learned the words commonly used in Junxia dialect, and his voice is still soft and waxy. Except for Lu Chang'an, no one has been so good in front of him, so Zhu Huntang walked in unconvinced glass house. If I'm more enthusiastic, you think I'm flattering you. If I'm more plain, you think I'm high-pitched. The voice of the girl in the lake green dress is somewhat similar to Zhu Huntang's. It is also soft and waxy, and it sounds like it if you listen carefully. It is 2 parts of sugar water, one with osman thus, which looks better when taking pictures, and one with ice cubes, which is dissolved in water. It is sweet with a slight coolness and not so cloying. You seem to know me very well. Zhu Huntang was very doubtful, but since the other party said this, it gave Zhu Huntang a somewhat positive impression. We are distant relatives. I have some contacts with the third wife, and I often hear her talk about you. The girl stood in front and led the way. At this time, Zhu Huntang saw another girl with blonde hair sitting on the railing of the stairs and sliding down. Her posture was extremely weird. When anyone straddled the railing, their buttocks would face the direction of sliding down, and she was facing forward. As expected, the blonde girl lost her balance after sliding for a certain distance, and fell heavily to the floor with a plop, her limbs spread flat on her face. "She's not dead." Zhu Huntang was startled and looked worriedly at the blonde girl lying motionless on the floor. "Will not." At this time, the blonde girl got up, shook her head, ran a few staggering steps, and disappeared into Zhu Huntang's realization. "What's wrong with her? Is there something wrong with her brain?" Zhu Huntang burst into laughter because he thought the other person was cute. This is what a paralyzed vegetative person suddenly looks like when he suddenly regains consciousness and has not yet fully mastered his body, the girl in a lake green dress explained nonchalantly. "She used to be a vegetable." Zhu Huntang was surprised and expressed sympathy. "No, I'm just describing it. She should be regarded as a robot. You can call her Xiaoji." "Is the rooster croaking like a chicken?" "The rooster is crowing." "Isn't this different?" "It's different, and her name is Xiaoji, the robot's machine." "Okay, so what's your name?" "Sunangziu." "He is really as his name suggests, he is very delicate." "Thank you." Domestic scenery is generally called Nangziu and Baixiang, which summarizes the characteristics of the scenery in the north and south. The name of the family is in the hope that I can absorb the essence of southern culture and landscape. "Awesome, I don't know what you are talking about." Sunangziu was silent for a while. "My fault." Lu Chang'an completed the military training in the afternoon in a positive manner, and met Bai Hui and Zhu Huntang, who were traveling together. Because they came from the front, Lu Chang'an smiled and nodded to continue walking to the other side, while saying to the roommates around him, "Look, two fairies." Everyone else was surprised that Lu Chang'an would take the initiative to praise others, because usually Lu Chang'an didn't seem to have any normal male reaction when seeing beautiful women. For example, when he saw that beautiful girl in the cafeteria today, he wanted to make a bet with everyone about the beautiful girl on her plate. What dish? In fact, this is also a concern and a normal male reaction, because a beautiful girl who often eats meat and enjoys all kinds of meat often has a bad breath, and her skin pores secrete more sweat and other oils, and her bangs often look greasy. The whole person is not so refreshing. "Lu Chang'an," Bai Hui called out to Lu Chang'an. The man actually smiled slightly and nodded before leaving. This reserved look is usually reserved for ordinary friends who don't know each other very well and don't have much interest in chatting. Attitude. Sun Shutong pulled Qin Ziqiang away. The saying that all the friends of beautiful girls are beautiful girls is indeed true. Last time we saw in Nuan and this Bai Hui together, everyone also fantasized about Bai Hui. Now this Bai Hui and when Zhu Huntang is together, it immediately reminds people of the saying that all the friends of beautiful girls are beautiful girls. In fact, it can be explained simply as birds of a feather flock together, and people of the same kind flock together. Then, under the influence of Zhu Huntang's bad character, Bai Huntang, I'm afraid it won't be much better. Wei Xuanyi didn't leave. After all, his identity was different. He had to be more generous. Even though he was still unhappy with what Zhu Huntang did that day, he should keep it in his heart if he had any concerns. Birds of a feather flock together. Lu Chang'an explained the scene before him. He was not surprised why the two people came together. Bai Hui and Zhu Huntang should not be familiar with each other, although Bai Hui was definitely interested in getting to know Zhu Huntang. He means that we are all fairies. Zhu Huntang proudly and confidently guessed what Lu Chang'an meant. Since she has become a fairy in Lu Chang'an's eyes, of course the attribute label of group points is also fairy. Lu Chang'an nodded. Bai Hui was a little embarrassed. This was the first time that Lu Chang'an praised him so much. He couldn't help but look a little more reserved on his face. He brushed his bangs with his fingers and looked at the sky sideways. The smile fell back on Lu Chang'an. "Are you Bai Hui? Lu Chang'an and I are roommates. My name is Wei Xuanyi. We met last time in the library. Now I am also the person in charge of military training." Does your class have any plans to organize social activities or parties recently? Wei Xuanyi, I feel that people like Minister Yuan are really a bit stupid. In fact, a beautiful girl like An Nuan doesn't need to inquire deliberately, she will find out quickly. It is easy for such an eye-catching girl to spread gossip and information. The same goes for the white Anis in front of me. She is good at dancing and organizing activities. She seems to be more capable than Yan Qingcheng in this regard. If we can get in touch with him more, we might become familiar with him. It will be easier to deal with than Yan Qingcheng, who has a glassy heart and can't take a joke. Bar. Judging from her smile and gentleness, she seems to be completely different from Zhu Huntang. Hello, we have something else to do, let's go first. Bai Hui smiled, then tugged on Lu Chang'an's sleeve and walked forward without answering Wei Xuanyi's question. It wasn't that she didn't hear it, she just didn't want to respond. Don't pull my sleeves, Lu Chang'an said. Why do these girls like to pull other people's sleeves? Wei Xuanyi stood there with an indifferent smile on his face, shrugged and turned around to leave. Lu Chang'an hopes that Bai Hui will ride in Zhu Huntang's helicopter. Although Zhu Huntang is unwilling to let Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong into her helicopter, she will not reject fairies with attributes similar to hers. But they didn't, and continued to follow him as they walked on campus with Lu Chang'an. I asked Bai Hui to be my campus assistant for 50,000 yuan a month, but she refused. Zhu Huntang began to speak. Lu Chang'an nodded, a meaningless movement. Actually, you just want to know some things about the school. There is someone who can help you understand campus activities and so on. You don't need to hire a special assistant, Bai Hui said with a smile. In fact, she was also a little moved. If she had put it in the past, she would have said nothing. She agreed without saying anything, but now that she is also a young rich woman, facing such a high salary, Bai Hui still refused. Bai Hui is a smart girl. She knows that being my friend has a better future than being an assistant. Zhu Huntang laughed. She didn't care who approached whom without any purpose. As long as she doesn't feel disgusted, it's fine, and it's like she sometimes still fantasizes about one day becoming the master of the 9 provinces Fenglai sword sect, driving Lu Chang'an to do bad things everywhere, do whatever he wants, and do whatever he wants. This is also the purpose of getting close to Lu Chang'an. Bai Hui was a little embarrassed. That's not what I meant. Then what do you want from me? When your rice noodle shop opens, we plan to have a dance in the shop. Lu Chang'an stopped, crossed his hands on his chest and looked at Zhu Huntang and Bai Hui. Aren't you happy? Bai Hui asked cautiously. Lu Chang'an's aura reminded Bai Hui of the feeling when he threw the 2 thieves under the overpass that night. Zhou Shuling agreed. Zhu Huntang was even more confident. She was only afraid of Lu Chang'an when Lu Chang'an was really angry. She usually dared to stretch out her legs to sneak attack Lu Chang'an. She felt that she was also a great person, better than Qinyanan's licking dog. Much more powerful. Lu Chang'an opened his mouth and was too lazy to say anything. For fairies like this, it would be better to just let nature take its course and let them do whatever they want, because if they were not killed and this was stopped, wouldn't it be possible for them to do another thing? Is there anything worthy of praise and improvement? This was probably the big gift that Zhou Shuling originally said that Zhu Huntang would give to him when he was about to open his business. Fortunately, Lu Chang'an didn't expect much in the first place. He just thought that Zhu Huntang might be able to give him something reliable at some point, which was really shameful. Seeing that Lu Chang'an seemed to have no objection, Zhu Huntang took Bai Hui and ran somewhere else. I have a distant cousin who is also in school, but unfortunately she doesn't like dancing, otherwise the 3 of us could dance together, Zhu Huntang said regretfully. Ah, are you also the eldest lady? Puer is super big, she's even eldest than me. I think you are quite approachable. This is an illusion, let me tell you something. Last time, there were 2 male classmates who I don't know who they were. I asked them to hang under my helicopter and go to my restaurant to eat dry pot. Bai Hui laughed twice, really not knowing what to say. Bai Hui and Zhu Huntang went to practice Lu Chang'an's dance without any expectations. Lu Chang'an went home by himself and took a look at the chili peppers drying in the sun. After the chili peppers are sun-dried, they will form a shallow circle of dark-colored dried chili peppers along the edge of the jar. The salty and spicy ones are more delicious, and now there are a few fingernail marks left on them. Lu Chang'an shook his head. The sun also set at the foot of the Lushan mountain, and he took back all the chili pepper ingredients. A big chapter was updated today, and it's the end of the month. Can you click on the word monthly ticket? Maybe there will be another one. The top of the Zhejiangmiazhi mountain rotates 755 degrees in the wind and stands upside down to ask for a monthly ticket. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 320. When Lu Chang'an came back, he bought fresh shepherd's purse at the vegetable market. This character that few people know is pronounced G. It is pronounced in the second tone, so it is not the same thing as shepherd's purse in the fourth tone. Pork root is called Zheurgen in Famous Doctors, Hautunia Cordata in Compendium of Materia Medica, and there is also a place in southern Guangdong called Go Tire. In short, this is basically the explanation. Men, women, and children from all over the country basically eat it. Everyone knows what it is. Pork greens, coriander, and durian are the three most common things that some people regard as delicacies, while others find it difficult to swallow. This is probably related to genes. Genes affect whether taste buds produce a tempting appetite or not. Repulsive disgust. Just like many poisons use strong colors to warn themselves that they are not easy to mess with, these unusually strong smells are often also a warning. Eating too much amaranth is definitely bad for your health, but eating a little bit of it is good for your health. Lu Chang'an cut the wild cabbage into inch-long pieces and tasted the chili pepper. He found that it was still a little tender, but he scraped it around and fried it in a pot to make it drier. Then he sprinkled the pickled root with these dried chili peppers. Add soy sauce, vinegar, garlic, and a little sugar and stir it. It will be crispy and refreshing. Of course, people who can't eat the roots of the ears will find it difficult to put the smell into their mouths. If they try it forcibly, it will only be thick and pungent, making it difficult to swallow. After cooking the wild vegetables, Zhou Shuling called her upstairs to make pickled vegetables and pig's feet for the evening, and asked Lu Chang'an to come up and eat. So Lu Chang'an went to Aunt Xie to buy a bottle of Red Star Urquatu, and took his own wild cabbage to eat together upstairs. The pickled pig's trotters made by Zhou Shuling are different from Lu Chang'an's. Her pig's trotters are minced and fried to a crispy appearance. They are more like a side dish for wine than a meal. However, she also stir-fries a portion of bacon with garlic sprouts, which is just right. With Lu Chang'an's wild vegetables, the combination of meat and vegetables was complete. 2 meat and 1 vegetable were just right for 3 people. Zhou Shuling didn't wash the baby potatoes anymore. She originally made boiled baby potatoes with perilla, but the baby potatoes were washed clean. Peeling is laborious. Zhou Dongdong stood at the door and licked his fingers seriously. Zhou Shuling ignored her in the kitchen. Brother Chang'an is a reasonable person and will not hit someone without saying anything, so Zhou Dongdong calmly finished licking 3 of his fingers and stretched out the remaining 2 fingers in front of Lu Chang'an. You want to lick my fingers and eat them? Thank you. Lu Chang'an saw the remaining chocolate on Zhou Dongdong's fingers. The teacher said children shouldn't waste food. Zhou Dongdong had a good reason for licking his fingers. You'd better wash your hands quickly. When your mother comes out, just wait and cry. Zhou Dongdong quickly went to wash his hands. Zhou Shuling brought out the meal and saw that Zhou Dongdong had washed her hands without being urged, So she praised her. After eating the pickled pig's trotters you made, you asked me to make them too, so I made another flavor. What do you think it tastes like? Zhou Shuling looked at Lu Chang'an expectantly. Lu Chang'an tasted the pig's feet and nodded to indicate that it was good, while Zhou Dongdong looked at Lu Chang'an's plate of wild vegetables. Brother Chang'an, you have no money and can only eat grass. Zhou Dongdong was a little worried. I'm not, I haven't eaten it. Well, yes, although this thing is grass, it is edible and delicious, Lu Chang'an explained. It's called wild grass. Zhou Dongdong was relieved, and at the same time he was very happy to have something delicious that he had never eaten before, so he picked up a chopstick and stuffed it into his mouth. Zhou Dongdong's face twisted and deformed sharply, he squinted his eyes, opened his mouth, and spat out. He looked at Lu Chang'an in disbelief. Although he smelled an extremely unpleasant taste just a moment before putting it into his mouth, he had eaten it before. Zhou Dongdong didn't pay much attention to the experience of smelly mandarin fish. But it seems to be completely different. Lu Chang'an took a sip, drank a sip of wine, took another sip, and looked at Zhou Dongdong. Zhou Dongdong took another taste and vomited again. Lu Chang'an continued to eat, looking as if he was enjoying the food. Zhou Dongdong tasted it again. He was very unwilling to give up, but he still vomited it. Lu Chang'an continued to eat. Zhou Dongdong finally opened his mouth and cried with a wow sound, very sad and sad. You're teasing her again, Zhou Shuling glared at Lu Chang'an angrily, but then she laughed happily. The pig's trotters are quite good, and they taste better than the ones I made. Especially the skin of the pig's trotters is fried just right. It doesn't lose its chewiness and original flavor, and it's not so greasy, Lu Chang'an praised Zhou Shuling's craft. Zhou Shuling was very happy and gave Lu Chang'an a carefully selected piece with meat and ribs. She knew that Lu Chang'an had good teeth and could eat pig's feet cleanly, including the ribs and ribs. After giving it to him, she also, if you don't want to eat, just watch Lu Chang'an eat. You must know that for a cook, it is very satisfying to watch someone finish his own food at such a high level. After Zhou Dongdong cried at the top of his lungs for a few times, he found that no one was paying attention to him. He sniffed, wiped his tears, and put another chopstick into his mouth. Wow, ow, ow. Even sadder. Zhou Shuling put the plate of wild vegetables directly in Lu Chang'an's hand, not letting Zhou Dongdong pick it up, and said angrily, if you can't eat it, don't eat it. Why are you howling? Obviously, obviously, obviously delicious, why can't I eat it, ah? Lu Chang'an continued to eat the pig's feet and reminded Zhou Dongdong, if you continue to compete with this plate of wild vegetables, I will finish the pig's feet first and then the beef. Zhou Dongdong came back to his senses and was stunned for a moment. How could he become such a stupid child? Not being smart or brave at all, he quickly started eating pig's feet. She is both greedy and stupid. Zhou Shuling put her hands on her hips helplessly. I don't know who she looks like. What do you think? Lu Chang'an looked at Zhou Shuling, really without any self-awareness. Next year's Arbor Day, you can take Zhou Dongdong to plant 13 trees. Although she didn't know why Lu Chang'an asked her to plant trees, Zhou Shuling still felt that taking children to plant trees was a very practical thing, so she nodded, let's go together. Okay, you plant and I'll watch. After Lu Chang'an finished eating, he discussed the color design of the children's bed with Zhou Shuling. In fact, it was just a talk. Anyway, Zhou Shuling only said okay, you make up your mind, you can do whatever you say, I'm fine with everything. Returning downstairs to continue making the bed, Lu Chang'an clapped his hands and thought, he might as well go see Shang Guandandan, after all, he had a new place for her today. When he came to the room downstairs and opened the door, Lu Chang'an was surprised to find that the coffin was opened and Shang Guandandan was missing. I highly recommend Xia Hua's only novel to read in 2018, Midnight Bookstore. I won't lie to you, I have been reading this book in the past 2 years. The author is Chun Xiaolong. Like Xiahua, it has been read in more than 404 books, but it is super awesome. Chapter 108 is here. The night has just enveloped the top of the sycamore tree. It is the time when the phoenix tree is in the phoenix tree. After dinner, shaking a cattail leaf fan and calling out to the children and girls in twos and threes to shout and drink in the mahjong parlor is the true meaning of the evening. Lu Chang'an was originally going to take one look at Shang Guandandan and ask old man Qian to play mahjong. Last time he lost the beard and left Lu Chang'an angry. It just so happened that he would win a little tonight and wait for him to show off his arrogance to Lu Chang'an. When you look down on arrogance, win it back. There was no Shang Guandandan in the coffin, and Lu Chang'an did not see Shang Guandandan. It doesn't matter, she won't be defeated or the void will be shattered. The important thing is that the coffin is opened, but Shang Guandandan is not inside. This is a rare opportunity for Lu Chang'an, because he has wanted to feel the coffin from the beginning. Shang Guandandan has been lying in it for 2,000 years, after she woke up, she has been lying in it until now, which is enough to show how comfortable this coffin is. He had thought before that if he lay in this coffin and launched him out of the solar system with a rocket, he would be able to travel through the universe. This is just a thought. He will not want to leave the Earth until human society or intelligent civilization is extinct on the Earth. That will probably be the day when all humans become data, and it is time for him to leave the Earth. Lu Chang'an approached the coffin, reached out and touched the coffin cover, which only had its edge resting on the coffin body, and then poked his head in to look inside the coffin. When he opened the coffin for the first time, he could see clearly that the inside of the coffin was no different from an ordinary coffin dug out of a cemetery, or a coffin prepared for the recently deceased. Looking carefully, there were many fine lines on the inner wall of the coffin, neatly arranged in rows. But when Lu Chang'an's fingers fell on it, he could feel that the lines were actually very complicated, but they were too fine and looked too thin to the naked eye. All I can think of is neat and straight lines. Lu Chang'an did not rush to use a magnifying glass to study the lines inside the coffin. He just looked at the snow-white quilt covered in the coffin. This quilt was the same one that Shang Guan had slept on for more than 2,000 years. It still felt soft and fluffy, as if it were in the same state as when it was just made. It felt like the quilt was not at the bottom. Lu Chang'an remembered that when he first saw Shang Guandandan here, her face was very close. When the coffin was opened, her nose should be only a few centimeters away from the coffin lid. Lu Chang'an did not lift the quilt. He kept the entire coffin in its current state to avoid inadvertently changing anything. He took off his shoes, then put his hand on the edge of the coffin, raised his legs and stepped in. He moved sideways and lay down facing the quilt. He planned to just lie down like this, which was different from Shang Guandandan's lying position, and then turn over to fully experience the feeling of sleeping in it. The quilt was so soft. After being slept on by Shang Guan for so many years, it was still so clean and soft. It even exuded a warm fragrance, which made Lu Chang'an close his eyes unconsciously. It's so comfortable, no wonder Shang Guandandan can lie here for so long. I wish I could sleep for a long time and never want to wake up. Why is there the sound of someone else breathing? Lu Chang'an couldn't help but open his eyes, only to find that there was some kind of quilt lying on top of him. It was clearly Shang Guandandan who he thought had disappeared. Shang Guandandan looked a little angry, but there was no other expression on his face. If she were a fairy like Zhu Huntang who could read other people's eyes, she could even see in her eyes it's true, nature is easy to change but hard to change, I'm going to destroy you, and so on. What's going on? Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand and pulled Shang Guandandan's face. It was real and warm, not like a hallucination. Lu Chang'an confirmed that this was indeed a real scene, and ran out of the coffin with a roll. Shang Guandandan was very confused, but he was a little surprised when he saw that Lu Chang'an seemed to have given up his unethical behavior. I didn't want to do anything to you. Lu Chang'an looked around, and finally his eyes fell on Shang Guandandan and the coffin. What's going on? Then you want to refine me into a pill? No. Then you lie on me to seek the warmth of maternal love? No. Lu Chang'an found that Shang Guandandan was as difficult to communicate with as Zhou Dongdong. Hell me up. Shang Guandandan raised her thin palm lightly. Lu Chang'an walked over and helped Shang Guandandan up, asking her to put on a show. At that time, Empress Lu and Empress Dowager Do mostly only addressed themselves as I in edicts, or on certain occasions and contexts, but in daily life not much, especially when facing the emperor. Shang Guandandan is different. Shang Guandandan stood up from the coffin and looked at the ground. Lu Chang'an also looked at the ground. Shang Guandandan looked at Lu Chang'an again. Do you want to come out? Do you want me to jump down? This is not the height of the pony carriage. It is very convenient for Shang Guandandan to step down directly from the pony carriage. How can you fly if you don't jump down? Foot pedal. Lu Chang'an sneered. He took a small bench and placed it in front of the coffin. Did someone help you when you came out before? But aren't you in front of me now? Lu Chang'an stopped talking to her about this. Shang Guandandan stepped out on the small bench and looked around. He didn't look disgusted or surprised. Lu Chang'an was poor, and Shang Guandandan was already sure. Shang Guandandan stood on the ground and stretched out her hand to straighten the collar she had just pulled. She had slowly begun to get used to doing many things by herself. In fact, even 2000 years ago, it was not that she was the most noble person in the empire. A woman who does nothing by herself. What happened just now? I walked into the room and saw the coffin opened, but you were not inside. When I lay down in it to feel it, I found you lying under me. Lu Chang'an asked. You want to steal my baby again? I'm just feeling it, just like your little carriage. Can't I give it back to you after playing with it? Can't you just play with your own stuff? Do you want to play with your phone? Shang Guandandan opened his mouth, but of course he wouldn't say I won't play. The point is, why is this happening? Lu Chang'an once again reminded her to pay attention to the key points. It's just an illusion. This coffin can feel your thoughts, but it is an illusion after all. So you thought you were just lying in the coffin, but in fact you were lying on me. Shang Guandandan found that Lu Chang'an was not lying. Then knew the reason and was slightly disappointed. It turned out that he really didn't need her motherly love. How can we stabilize the relationship between two people? Shang Guandandan looked at the unfamiliar face in front of him and recalled the young man who sang happily in Chang'an City. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 321. The night has just enveloped the top of the sycamore tree. It is the time when the phoenix tree is in the phoenix tree. After dinner, shaking a cattail leaf fan and calling out to the children and girls in twos and threes to shout and drink in the mahjong parlor is the true meaning of the evening. Lu Chang'an was originally going to take one look at Shang Guandandan and ask old man Qian to play mahjong. Last time he lost the beard and left Lu Chang'an angry. It just so happened that he would win a little tonight and wait for him to show off his arrogance to Lu Chang'an. When you look down on arrogance, win it back. There was no Shang Guandandan in the coffin, and Lu Chang'an did not see Shang Guandandan. It doesn't matter, she won't be defeated or the void will be shattered. The important thing is that the coffin is opened, but Shang Guandandan is not inside. This is a rare opportunity for Lu Chang'an, because he has wanted to feel the coffin from the beginning. Shang Guandandan has been lying in it for 2000 years. After she woke up, she has been lying in it until now, which is enough to show how comfortable this coffin is. He had thought before that if he lay in this coffin and launched him out of the solar system with a rocket, he would be able to travel through the universe. This is just a thought. He will not want to leave the Earth until human society or intelligent civilization is extinct on the Earth. That will probably be the day when all humans become data, and it is time for him to leave the earth. Lu Chang'an approached the coffin, reached out and touched the coffin cover, which only had its edge resting on the coffin body, and then poked his head in to look inside the coffin. When he opened the coffin for the first time, he could see clearly that the inside of the coffin was no different from an ordinary coffin dug out of a cemetery, or a coffin prepared for the recently deceased. Looking carefully, there were many fine lines on the inner wall of the coffin, neatly arranged in rows. But when Lu Chang'an's fingers fell on it, he could feel that the lines were actually very complicated, but they were too fine and looked too thin to the naked eye. All I can think of is neat and straight lines. Lu Chang'an did not rush to use a magnifying glass to study the lines inside the coffin. He just looked at the snow-white quilt covered in the coffin. This quilt was the same one that Shang Guan had slept on for more than 2,000 years. It still felt soft and fluffy, as if it were in the same state as when it was just made. It felt like the quilt was not at the bottom. Lu Chang'an remembered that when he first saw Shang Guan Dandan here, her face was very close. When the coffin was opened, her nose should be only a few centimeters away from the coffin lid. Lu Chang'an did not lift the quilt. He kept the entire coffin in its current state to avoid inadvertently changing anything. He took off his shoes, then put his hand on the edge of the coffin, raised his legs and stepped in. He moved sideways and lay down facing the quilt. He planned to just lie down like this, which was different from Shang Guan Dandan's lying position, and then turn over to fully experience the feeling of sleeping in it. The quilt was so soft. After being slept on by Shang Guan for so many years, it was still so clean and soft. It even exuded a warm fragrance, which made Lu Chang'an close his eyes unconsciously. It's so comfortable, no wonder Shang Guan Dandan can lie here for so long. I wish I could sleep for a long time and never want to wake up. Why is there the sound of someone else breathing? Lu Chang'an couldn't help but open his eyes, only to find that there was some kind of quilt lying on top of him. It was clearly Shang Guan Dandan who he thought had disappeared. Shang Guan Dandan looked a little angry, but there was no other expression on his face. If she were a fairy like Zhu Huntang who could read other people's eyes, she could even see in her eyes it's true, nature is easy to change but hard to change, I'm going to destroy you, and so on. What's going on? Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand and pulled Shang Guan Dandan's face. It was real and warm, not like a hallucination. Lu Chang'an confirmed that this was indeed a real scene, and ran out of the coffin with a roll. Shang Guan Dandan was very confused, but he was a little surprised when he saw that Lu Chang'an seemed to have given up his unethical behavior. I didn't want to do anything to you. Lu Chang'an looked around, and finally his eyes fell on Shang Guan Dandan and the coffin. What's going on? Then you want to refine me into a pill? No. Then you lie on me to seek the warmth of maternal love? No. Lu Chang'an found that Shang Guan Dandan was as difficult to communicate with as Zhou Dongdong. Hell me up. Shang Guan Dandan raised her thin palm lightly. Lu Chang'an walked over and helped Shang Guan Dandan up, asking her to put on a show. At that time, Empress Lu and Empress Dowager Do mostly only addressed themselves as I in edicts, or on certain occasions and contexts, but in daily life not much, especially when facing the emperor. Shang Guan Dandan is different. Shang Guan Dandan stood up from the coffin and looked at the ground. Lu Chang'an also looked at the ground. Shang Guan Dandan looked at Lu Chang'an again. Do you want to come out? Do you want me to jump down? This is not the height of the pony carriage. It is very convenient for Shang Guan Dandan to step down directly from the pony carriage. How can you fly if you don't jump down? Foot pedal. Lu Chang'an sneered. He took a small bench and placed it in front of the coffin. Did someone help you when you came out before? But aren't you in front of me now? Lu Chang'an stopped talking to her about this. Shang Guan Dandan stepped out on the small bench and looked around. He didn't look disgusted or surprised. Lu Chang'an was poor, and Shang Guan Dandan was already sure. Shang Guandandan stood on the ground and stretched out her hand to straighten the collar she had just pulled. She had slowly begun to get used to doing many things by herself. In fact, even 2000 years ago, it was not that she was the most noble person in the empire. A woman who does nothing by herself. What happened just now? I walked into the room and saw the coffin opened, but you were not inside. When I lay down in it to feel it, I found you lying under me, Lu Chang'an asked. You want to steal my baby again? I'm just feeling it, just like your little carriage. Can't I give it back to you after playing with it? Can't you just play with your own stuff? Do you want to play with your phone? Shang Guandandan opened his mouth, but of course he wouldn't say I won't play. The point is, why is this happening? Lu Chang'an once again reminded her to pay attention to the key points. It's just an illusion. This coffin can feel your thoughts, but it is an illusion after all. So you thought you were just lying in the coffin, but in fact you were lying on me. Shang Guandandan found that Lu Chang'an was not lying. Then knew the reason and was slightly disappointed. It turned out that he really didn't need her motherly love. How can we stabilize the relationship between two people? Shang Guandandan looked at the unfamiliar face in front of him and recalled the young man who sang happily in Chang'an City.